All right, everybody, welcome back to another monthly ranking movie talk episode. Trying something a little different. Look at this bright and shiny day outside. The quality should be better too. The reason I've never done my iPhone, as of recently at least, the last several years when I started doing my webcam stuff, is because, first of all, if I'm doing stuff online, it's a lot easier to just have one screen recording, one screen doing this. And second of all, for some reason there was a problem when I would put iPhone videos and try to use them in Adobe Premiere. And it would always be more of an issue than I would like. But I'm hoping I can figure out a quick and easy solution this time and maybe start doing this more often. Obviously, it's like kind of a weather permitting thing and situational depending on the video. Like, I can't do really reactions, I don't think, feasibly in this method, because reactions really work with a second monitor and everything. And so right now I'm trying my audio too. I used this years ago, the lav mic, and I'm not sure. I'll compare the different audio from the iPhone camera versus this and see which one's best. And also, for these videos, I'm kind of used to referencing my phone and everything. I just have it written down my list. We'll see how that goes for me. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, this is a monthly series I do where we go through all the movies I watched for the first time in the previous month. And I do it ranking style. So we'll go from the bottom to the top. Just arbitrarily, the movies I happen to watch for the first time in March. So I always try to say, please don't pay too much mind to the rankings. I try to be very thoughtful with where I rank things, but at the end of the day, things change so frequently. If you go back a couple months, I probably would already change things around, and also just the fact that we're comparing them to this arbitrary batch of movies that I happen to watch at the same time. So it's like there are some great movies that are like number 15 on this list. It's that's what it is. Just how it goes. I also want to preface that I will be doing no spoilers whatsoever. Alright, that's kind of my MO with these, is I want you to be able to watch them. And considering you don't know all the movies that are to come, I don't want you to just constantly be a landmine of dodging spoilers. So you can freely watch knowing there won't be spoiled. And that's what I try to be mindful of as well. Without further ado, I will say, as we go through the rankings, I watched 21 movies this time around. I completely caught up, essentially. Wanted to be on pace with the amount of movies I want to be watching. Because the first month I did 4 movies, which was supremely low, and then I did 7 movies. And I tried to keep pace of watching like 10 movies a month is what my goal is. And so 4, 7, and now 21, I actually made up for all the movies I missed. So we're back on track here, and some good movies to talk about. The way it's going to work is, as I go through the movies, I'm going to say what tier you're in. So I have tiers, very nuanced and well thought out tiering system for these rankings. So at the bottom, they're not all present in every video, but this is like what the tiers you could potentially be placed on. At the bottom is terrible, then not good, then okay, then good, then great, then amazing. That's my tiering system. All right. And so for the sake of this particular month, we're going to be starting on okay. So none of these movies I think are bad movies, this entire list, which is nice. So we'll start with okay, and then I'll tell you whenever we jump up tiers along the way. All right. I also like to shout out movies I rewatched and say where I think hypothetically they would be placed on the ranking if they were first time watches. For this month, the only rewatches I had were the first 3 Halloween movies. Because on Tarkaron we were going through all the Halloween movies, and I had previously watched all of them a couple years ago, and so now these are all rewatches for me. Where would I place them? The original Halloween would probably land at number 2. Halloween 2 would probably land at... Ooh, that's tough. anywhere in the number 7 to number 10 range, and Halloween 3 somewhere in the 13 to 15 range. All right, very scientific. I just kind of did that on the fly and not even precise about it. Sure. All right, let's start with number 21. And with number 21, we're starting the OK tier, as I said. Number 21, Disneyland Handcrafted. All right, why not? This is a Disney Plus thing, naturally. Came out this year, actually, so it was just kind of on my list as a new release to watch. And I'm always kind of a sucker for these behind-the-scenes documentaries. This one actually shows some like archival footage of Disneyland being built initially, and kind of highlights more of the craftsmen behind the experience and the making of, which I appreciated that aspect, but it did kind of drag, you know? It wasn't the most riveting documentary for me, and it actually felt longer than it was. And so as someone who's a sucker for these kind of documentaries, the fact that I wasn't instantly just completely in maybe is telling. I don't know, maybe I'm a little harsh on it. But again, I do appreciate them highlighting the crafts workers, and highlighting those things that are often overlooked when we look back in the history books of Disneyland. And this is as someone who still's never been to Disneyland or Disney World, and I still have a fascination with the parks and the making of them. Number 20, Mr. Nobody Against Putin. This is, if you watched my Oscars reaction, this was the one win for Best Documentary that I was not happy with. Pretty much this is one of the very few I was not. It might be the only one I was actively not happy with as the win, because I loved so many of the other documentaries mentioned, and as I said then, I thought that was just okay, and just the weakest of the documentaries. So it is what it is. I mean, the story is interesting. Like, you follow this teacher in Russia who is like essentially experiencing growing like the propaganda that they would enforce in these schools, and like, okay, you need to teach them this, you need to film them learning these things, essentially glorifying Russia, that kind of thing. And you know, this teacher essentially had to leave Russia in order to get this footage out there that he had. And so, I mean, I like it, I admired it, but I thought just the other documentaries were so much stronger and more well crafted that that was unfortunate. But yeah, now that I mentioned that, a lot of these are 2025 releases, because this was March. The Oscars were halfway into March, and so I was really high on like my last minute catch up for the Oscars too. And so that's a lot of these here. I realized because of this angle, you know, maybe that's something I can work on, like the lighting, you know. It always ends up being awkward with this kind of setup if I don't have picked the perfect spot. But I was like, okay, there's a lot of glare going on the glasses. I don't really need the glasses because I don't need to see much in this setup. And my desk setup, it's kind of further back, so I need to see it better. But yeah, so a lot of Oscars catch up in here. And then in the months coming forward, it'll be a lot more mixed, back to a mixed bag. So yeah, that was a 2025 film that ended up being the Best Documentary Feature winner. Number 19, The Lost Bus, 2025. This one was nominated for Best Visual Effects. It's an Apple TV film, The Lost Bus, starring Matthew McConaughey and America Ferrera's there. This one is pretty good. You know, I was teetering between okay and good for this one, and ultimately just went with okay, because I think the characters themselves are not as fleshed out. Worth saying, when I do say characters, these are based on real people, and it's a real story, which does definitely amplify it and makes the story that much more like wild to even think about. The visual effects are great. Like, there's tons of, essentially fire is the main thing at the end of the day. So much fire mixed in seamlessly, and they had to work overtime on just like fire, flames, and smoke in every frame of this movie almost. And it is pretty like thrilling at times, but Like, it's definitely gripping, but again, just not as fleshed out as I feel like it should be if it was going to be, like one of my favorite movies of the year. Obviously, I was watching this just because it was nominated. I was trying to watch every Oscar-nominated film. Came up a little short, but got the large majority of them. Even though I knew, ironically, I didn't watch Avatar: Fire and Ash, but we knew that Avatar: Fire and Ash was going to win the best visual effects. So all the other ones were just kind of the nominations, the win, and so that's a deserving nomination for sure. Now we're going into the good tier. So look at that. There was only 3 movies in the okay tier, and even those weren't bad. But now the top 18 are all at least good films or better. Like, I enjoyed all of these. Like, no way around it. Number 18, Hoppers, 2026. This was the latest from Pixar. We did do a review over on Tarkron if you want my detailed thoughts. Ultimately, my takeaway was that I enjoyed the film. It does some fun things. It does border on, like, over the top in the same way that, like, Finding Dory has that scene with the octopus driving the car. There's some of that energy baked in here. For the most part, it's a very nice, it's a sweet story. Like, I like what they were doing, but I do disagree with the people who claim that, like, this is the return of Pixar. Like, this is back at Pixar at its peak, or like it's something really special. I'm like, no, it's really along the same lines of the some of the more recent years Pixar and even Disney that fall into a similar bucket for me, like the 7.5 out of 10 range. It's still a far cry from the 9 out of 10 Pixar's for me. But another thing we're trying to do this year is a full Pixar watch/rewatch. Most of them will be rewatches, but there's a couple I still haven't seen. But I don't know where Hoppers ends up if I rank all of those. I'm curious, but I do think it's probably in the bottom half or like the very middle. But I did enjoy it. It's just, I like, when we think about Pixar, like, there's always, even if Pixar in recent years hasn't been at that peak, you still think back to them, You can't help but think of the heyday and just be like, man, if we could get back to that, yeah, that'd be good. Number 17, Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping, 2016, all right? This is a random one, but I had heard for a while that this is like a very interesting comedy, and he's that mockumentary style, which you don't really see these days. It ticks off almost every box that you want to tick for a mockumentary style movie like this. Like, it's pretty solid all around. Some of the jokes just don't land. No doubt there are some jokes that just don't land in there, but for the most part it's funny, and I like, the seriousness with the quote-unquote seriousness with which it's presented. It's fun, but I know some people view it way more highly than that, and it's like one of their favorites when you talk about comedies like this, but not quite that for me. I did enjoy it though. Number 16, Modern Times. This is a 1936 film, so this is a real outlier on this list. Everything else is in the 2000s or higher, and mostly 2025. I just got a random bug I don't know if I saw Charlie Chaplin mentioned or what, but I was like, you know what? The longest time I've been meaning to watch Charlie Chaplin movies and see what the deal is, renowned for the slapstick humor that he brought at this time period. And even before, when he was in the silent era especially. I feel like I've seen clips of Charlie Chaplin, but never actually watched a full Charlie Chaplin movie, so this is the first one for me. Ironically, it's funny because it's called Modern Times, and is the least modern of the films I watched by far. But mostly, look, if you compare it to modern films, it's really going to be hard, and it's like, if I'm going purely on enjoyment, being a little generous, putting it above the ones I put it above. But I do give it credit just because I was actually really impressed with some of the different clever filmmaking techniques they employed, which is obviously some of the biggest things you can look back on and appreciate from older films, just because they were so much more limited. So if you can make something look convincing, like there's a little roller skating scene in this film that was really impressive to me, and I'm impressed with Charlie Chaplin doing it. I'm impressed with how they pulled it off with literally practical effects, which nowadays you would assume would be done with visual effects. So it's really cool little tricks like that along the way. And then obviously the production design for the time, the sets in place, that's another thing. Is there's some great practical sets, when you think of the factory and all the couple of different scenes within there. That's the stuff that stands out to me. Yes, it's a comedy. There's some goofy stuff I appreciate, but it's not laugh out loud funny. It's product of the time. So even the fact that I can enjoy it as much as I did now, I give it a little bit of a curve. Number 15, Sentimental Value, 2025. This is one, I say this a lot with movies that don't fully click with me, but I really firmly believe it with this one, that I'm due for a rewatch on it, and I feel like I could appreciate it more on a rewatch. The reason being, I had saved Sentimental Value for one of the last films to watch as my catch-up, because I didn't know many details of it, but just the vibe and what I'd heard of, like the style of the film, it really seemed right up my alley. Like I love these just films centered on characters and emotionally wrestling with things. And even from the movie poster, like, you can tell it's clearly set on distinct select characters, and it's been nominated for multiple acting nominations: Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress ×2. Like, that's impressive. So I was like, wow, okay, I'm ready for this to be one of my favorites of the year. And it just didn't fully click for me. I don't know why, but it didn't like emotionally resonate with me in the way that I expected it to. Like, a lot of people I hear are like, brings them to tears, and it really is moving, and it just wasn't that for me. What I do appreciate is the technical aspects, which I can see, like the directing is solid, the acting is solid. Like, I appreciate all these things. It just didn't quite click for me to make it like one of my favorites of the year. So that's one I would love to revisit and rewatch for sure. Number 14, The Testament of Anne Lee. This is an interesting one, which I had been hearing throughout the award season that kind of Amanda Seyfried is getting a raw deal here and not getting more recognition. And it ultimately seems to come down to the visibility of this film, because I wanted to actively watch this film ever since I heard about it, but I never had access to it in my theaters. And they just, like, the rollout was so weird, the marketing was bad, and so there was almost no eyes on this film. But the biggest takeaway from this movie is that Amanda Seyfried is just that good. She is great. Would have been a much better nomination than a Kate Hudson, that's for sure. Like, it feels like a very transformative role. She really loses herself in this character, and it is a musical / period piece at the same time. Like, you're essentially following Amanda Seyfried as the founder of the Quakers, and it's a musical. By definition, it's a musical. But when you hear them, when I heard that, I was like, okay, we're in for, like, I did not expect at all what we were going to get from it. Because you hear musical, you think, okay, maybe it's less of a serious take on it then. But no, it's actually still played very seriously, and the musical numbers are actually woven in, like, very tastefully into the film and into the narrative. That's actually kind of blends together really nicely. It's never, like, distracting. They don't go for over-the-top showstopper, handshaking musical numbers. And it just, like, they understand what they have here, and they work with that, with the tone of the film. It doesn't detract, it doesn't distract at all. And if anything, it's like, wow, there's like a certain melancholy and rhythm to some of the songs that just fit the scene, and it's like, I'm impressed. Like, there's none if I were to sit down and go through, I would probably think of some. But there's not like one standout song. It's just really like as a package, just kind of complements the film. So I was impressed by that. Don't I don't think I'm at the point where I can say it's, one of the best of the year, or obviously it's not in my great amazing tiers, but I did enjoy the film. Number 13, The Pixar Story, 2007. Now this is one I was kind of thinking of when we were talking about Hoppers, but I wanted to wait to bring it up really, is like, this is about the early Pixar years. Think about this. This movie came out in 2007. If you look at the movies that were released up to 2007 of Pixar, they were just like hit after hit after hit. It's actually a generational run that Pixar had in that first string of them. And you could argue that they didn't really get a definitive bad Pixar movie until around Cars 2, I think was the earliest one that's like there were very few Cars 2 defenders. People try to shit on Cars as well, but no, I think Cars is right up there with them. It's a great, great film. And so just think about that run. Like it's, Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2. I forget the exact order, but it's Monsters, Inc., Incredibles, Finding Nemo, Cars, Ratatouille, even Up, WALL-E, like Toy Story 3, like these are all within the span of early years Pixar. But like, yeah, like I think Ratatouille was just coming out when this movie came out. And I had never seen this. This is a nice documentary that really is illuminating on the Pixar experience. It was nice to bring us back to that time. It's like, man, I miss that time. It makes you really nostalgic for it. Like, at that time, I was very young. I wasn't, like, fully appreciating what I had. But then you look back with such nostalgia, and you can watch these movies now. You can watch these movies now, and they all still hold up. It's just, man, where did we go wrong? Now it's kind of like hit or miss, and then now the standard like that we're at is like good. Like we got some good movies, but nothing like all time amazing. Like we have occasional like a Soul a few years ago is bordering on that. Coco a few years before that is up there too. But other than that, it's like we just gotta hope for a good Pixar movie. And I'm like, damn, this was such a good string of movies. That was like almost the perfect time that they happened to make this documentary, where there was no duds at that point. So I enjoyed that. Number 12, The Secret Agent, 2025. This was one that was nominated for Best International Feature. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated Wagner Moura for Best Actor. Which, Wagner Moura was good in this, but honestly, that's probably one I would switch out of the Best Actor category, having seen it now. Like I think someone like a Jesse Plemons would have been better, would have been a better pick, personally. That's just me. That being said, this film, I think the pacing is the biggest issue for it. It's a very long film, and the first half is like kind of a slog to get through at times. But I'm like, damn, that second half of this film really got me. Like I was hooked at that point. I'm like, damn, if we just kept this energy throughout, shortened it up, and we could have had this energy throughout, and it would have been cool. So I mostly enjoyed it more than I didn't, that's for sure. But it was the pacing that was the main issue holding me back from, again, it being one of my favorites of the year. Number 11, Eternity, 2025. I did have this one up a little higher. I bordered on good and great for this one for a while. Still not 100% on it. But ultimately, what I enjoyed about this film is that it's a fun take on an afterlife. Like, I always enjoy films. I've always been fascinated with that. In general, in life, I'm fascinated by that. It's hard not to be. Just speculating on a hypothetical afterlife and the different forms it takes in our media has always been very interesting. Even like a Soul for Pixar, that's an interesting take on it. But this one I thought was really fun and like a novel concept of like okay, once you get into the afterlife, you have a limited time to pick your eternity, and then you're stuck with it. It's like, man, this is a weirdly flawed afterlife where they have a whole system of working people through, and like officials that'll help you, your like life coach or whatever they called it. But at the same time, it's like so restrictive. Like you have these different options that are very catered towards different things, very hyper specific type of lifestyles, and yet you're supposed to just pick one and stick with it, and that's rough. But I still found it deeply fascinating. There's a really solid emotional beats in there, whereas it's like it can be goofy a lot of the time, but when it takes the time to stop down and like focus on the characters in a meaningful way, it actually really hits. So now we'll be going into the great tier, starting with the top 10. Number 10, Little Amelie or The Character of Rain. A great animated film. This was nominated for Best Animated Feature, so yeah, another 2025 film. Simultaneously adorable and terrifying. I was confused for parts of this film until you really kind of figure out what the deal is. And then once you think about the film as a whole, I think like, okay, I enjoy what it was doing. And just the animation is really charming, really beautiful. I enjoyed the voices and the little bit of like inner monologue we got from this little girl. It just all came together to be a nice, cute animated story, and I liked it. Was bordering between great and good for me. Ultimately, it eked out with great because that was my initial reaction. Like, this is great, but I don't know if it's one that I'll think of long term. I don't know. I don't know if it'll stick with me as much. But it's definitely a worthwhile watch for any animated fans. I highly recommend it. It's a distinctly beautiful animation style that you don't really see often. And it's got a lot of charm to it. Yeah, so give it a chance. Number 9, Viva Verdi. This is going to be a shock to anyone who did the similar thing of trying to watch all the Oscars movies. This is one I watched solely because of that. And solely because it was nominated for Best Original Song. This was a shock when they were announcing the nominees for Best Original Song. And there was like no songs for like Wicked, which were expected. And there was a couple other ways they could have gone with it, but randomly there was Sweet Dreams of Joy from Viva Verdi. And like every single reaction I watched, I had no idea what that was. And so then I see a couple people watch it just by virtue of it being nominated. And ultimately I'm glad I did. You have to go to a weird website that doesn't even sound legit, but it is. I think it's jolt.film, and I had to pay $10. I think it's usually $15, but they had a discount code for the people trying to watch all the Oscars movies, so they made it $10 just to watch it. So yeah, I don't know if I would go that far to say you should spend $10 to watch it, but I'm grateful I watched it. I thought this was a really heartwarming film. Like, this is actually a joy to watch. Honestly, it was really inspiring. I forget exactly how they phrase it, but it's essentially a retirement home for retired musicians. And essentially, these are musicians in their 70s, 80s, and beyond that just love and are passionate about music in different forms, whether it's like instruments like violinists or bass players or opera singers, like all these different kind of like artistic musician styles, and they just love it, and they love being surrounded by it. And it's a house that there's a whole legacy from the creator who wanted to pass this on after he was gone from the earth, and he left this legacy of a home where all these creative musical minds can just exist and be around everything they love in their later years, you know. And it's this whole interesting perspectives that you get from the elderly individuals here, and just like about living life with dignity and doing what they want to do. I mean, I just thought it was a lot of beautiful things to take away from it. At the end of the day, it's a pretty simple documentary, but it was moving enough to me and just brought a smile to my face and was inspiring enough that I'm like, this is a great film. I'll go as far to say that's a great film. and more people should watch it if they get a chance. Number 8, Twinless, 2025. This is one of those outskirt ones that I was like, I actually reach for my glasses by instinct. I do that a lot to like adjust it because I'm rarely without glasses. But this was like kind of wrap up. It wasn't nominated for Oscars, but it was kind of like, no, look at this. Now I got this going on. That's annoying. Boom, got it. This is kind of part of like, once I was doing Oscars wrap up, but then after the Oscars ended, I was trying to do 2025 wrap up because I wanted to do a video talking about my favorite movies of the year, and I still kind of want to do it even though it's supremely late into 2026 to be doing that. But this was one I'd heard on the low. It was a favorite of some people's, and I totally get why. I was torn with it watching it, and it's a difficult watch at times. There's some frustrating aspects to it. There's a frustrating character involved, but it's still fascinating, and I love what they did. There's like, because when I saw the movie, looked at the movie on Letterboxd, I saw a little screenshot of the two characters with the little Sims diamond above their head, and I was like, that was already kind of what sold me on it. I was like, wow, Sims reference in this game, and yeah, there's a direct Sims reference in this, and it almost takes a that and incorporates it into the cinematography and the direction for a couple scenes, which are super effective to me. Really well done. I love what they did with those scenes. I thought it was really clever. And so stuff like that, and then the acting for what's his name, Dylan O'Connor, is that his name? Am I just making that up? Now I'm going off. I don't have anything to reference, so I'm just throwing that name out there. I think it's Dylan something. Dylan O'Brien, Dylan O'Connor. That Dylan guy, he's great in that role. There's a couple solid acting performances here from our leads, and yeah, I admired them. It was very different what they were going for here, and I admired the vision. And again, I love the execution of some of those shots. Number 7, Rental Family, 2025. There's another one of those fringe ones that weren't quite awards contenders, but could have been another world, because I think this is a very charming, very sweet movie at the end of the day. I think some of the stuff is oversimplified compared to how I think things would go if this was actually done in the real world, but it takes it, again, an interesting, compelling concept of like, there's this company who you hire them to essentially play parts in their lives. Like, you could literally be hired to pretend like you're their mistress. You could pretend that you're their father, that you're their brother, that you're best friends. Sometimes you're just hired to come over and just hang out with them. All these different things you could be hired for it as a whole company, a small company built around it. I do like movies that play on these interesting concepts, because it's almost like, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind does a similar thing where it has like a futuristic technology in the mix in that one, but it's still like an interesting kind of dystopian company that doesn't exist, but in this hypothetical future could. Rental Family has shades of that, but ultimately it's pretty sweet. It's not like a dark, so don't get that impression. It's not dark like Eternal Sunshine, but it's pretty sweet for the most part. And Brendan Fraser is the lead. I think he's a great choice for it. He really matches the tone the film's going for, and it's a very charming film. Hikari, which is a director I didn't know about, just Hikari is what they go by. They did a great job as a director. Some gorgeous shots. Like, I'd picked a custom poster on Letterboxd. Check it out on my Letterboxd. Just look at that poster and tell me that doesn't look like a movie you want to get into. Just a beautiful, like, lavish backgrounds and everything, almost Hamnet-esque in certain points. That's not most of the movie, but there are a couple of scenes that are like that. It's like, wow, this is just gorgeous, the scenery that we have here. But yeah, Rental Family, it's great. Number 6, It Was Just an Accident, 2025. This is one that's also up there with a lot of people's favorites of the year. And I mean, it's up there with mine too, probably at least in the top 25. Probably makes the cut. It's a great film, obviously. The ending, I resonate, or I co-sign what a lot of people say, where that just really hits. It's a solid ending, and that's all I'll say on that. But just love how they ended the film. There's some really great tension. There's some surprisingly great performances in here. One in particular really does stand out in certain scenes. I see surprisingly great because apparently the large majority were not professional actors that they got for this film. It's because Jafar Panahi, that's the other layer to this film, is that people give this film a lot of credit for that. The reason that it was so difficult for him to even get it made, a lot of it was done kind of in secret, without the approval of the country, and so it makes it even more impressive that they were able to make such a compelling product here, and really is engaging. It's gripping. It's just a lovely. I was gonna say lovely. It's not really lovely, but it's captivating. It's engaging, and that's just like, you know, you got a good movie when you got that. It's not like dragging. It's not boring. It just hooks you, and there's some gripping couple of scenes in here that really hit. Number 5, No Other Choice, 2025. This was the last of the biggest, or one of the last of the biggest 2025 movies I needed to check off my list. I was like, I know I need to watch this just to make sure, because it easily could be one of my favorites, and it's up there, and it could go higher over time as well. Like, I already have it number 5 out of these 21 films. Great film for sure. The biggest thing was that I heard so much buzz around this film and being like one of the biggest snubs of Oscars this year. And it was that, as well as the fact that Park Chan-wook is the director, who I haven't seen a lot of his films. I've only seen one other film he did, which was The Handmaiden, and I loved The Handmaiden. Pretty unabashedly, I loved that film. Spoke very, very highly of it. It was one of my favorite films I watched for the first time in 2025, period. I was actually watched it very early into the year 2025, probably about a year ago now. And so I loved that film, and I loved the directing in particular. It just really stood out to me. So I was curious to watch this. Lee Byung-hun as the lead role, he's great. And I just loved a lot of what was done. The cinematography is really gorgeous in a lot of these scenes, and the directing is certainly solid. There's just, you're not going to come out of this film with nothing like to think about. It's like there's a lot visually to sink your teeth into, and then the actual events of the film are kind of crazy. And I get that impression just from the couple films I've seen from him, that he likes to go with these films that really elaborate things start happening. Things start unraveling and becoming more and more like chaotic, you'd say, just to manage as it goes on. Look at this. Every time I think I got it solved, another sliver of light peeks through. I don't know how that works, but so yeah, it's a great film. I want to go back and watch his other films for sure, and I want to rewatch this film too, because I think this one could also go even higher on a rewatch. It could hit even harder. Number 4, La La Land, 2016. I gotta be honest with you. First of all, this was on my list to watch for a long time now. You know, I love musicals. I've heard the buzz around La La Land and all the Oscars fiasco about it, of it getting the, you know, they wrongfully announced it as the winner of Best Picture and everything. I had to revoke it. But, you know, when I hear people talk about those Oscars, the reason that was also such a big moment was because it was like a very likely, very possible winner for Best Picture. So it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. So the fact that it was the whole switcheroo after is pretty crazy. But this got Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling, and it's just full on classical, like Hollywood musical, and it really goes all into those stylings. And I said I gotta be honest with you way long ago, and I just said normal things. I was gonna say, I gotta be honest with you. At first, I wasn't sold on it as the film was going through. maybe in the first half. I'm kind of in the park where I think the ending of the film makes the film for me. And that kind of really justified a lot of it and made it hit a lot harder than where I thought it was going initially. And so that's all I'll say on that. But so in retrospect, I got a lot more appreciation out of the film. And I mean, undeniable, the music's solid. And it's almost the antithesis of The Testament of Anne Lee, which I mentioned earlier, which is like, that one's a lot more serious in tone and is more seamless. Doesn't distract from anything. This one's like, okay, we're a musical, we're a big production, we're going for almost like on stage production style and how it's presented, with like dancing, music, all of that, choreography, and we're just owning that. So it's like, okay, when a musical number comes in, it's like, whoa, okay, we're taking on a little bit of a trip there. And ultimately, what is so special about this film is that the relationship aspect to it, as much as everything is kind of over the top and showy throughout the film, that feels pretty real, and I think they tell it in a fairly authentic way that just makes it more satisfying as a film, and how everything turns out and how everything is told on screen. So again, a lot of these I would do a rewatch on, but that one for sure. Number 3, Arco 2025. This is probably a shock if any of you have been following these movies closely in award season, that Arco is number 3 over so many of these. I'm completely willing to admit that this might be incorrect, and like, if I'm being like, with more time and again rewatching a couple of these, this could easily fall down to the number anywhere from down to 7, probably not below that. But here's what I did. I followed my heart. My heart told me, is that my initial reaction when I watched Arco was like, I loved that movie. I loved it. It was almost like a more passionate, quicker response than some of these other great ones that I just named off. And so that's why I put it in the spot that I did for now, with knowing that full well it's a possibility that it could be a little too high. Because it's interesting, even when talking about the best animated films, I ultimately was like, I think K-Pop Demon Hunters is probably the one I would prefer. It's deserving, but it's very close for me with Arco. When I watched Arco, I loved it, and to me that is a clear number 2, my second favorite. And then when I see people talking about that category, I don't think that was really the case for most people. I heard a lot of Little Amelie being the second, maybe even a Zootopia 2, more than I heard Arco. And maybe I heard that there's a lot of similarities between this and another film, maybe that's why. But I loved it. I was completely charmed by the characters. I loved the concept. It was a weird, kind of cool sci-fi-esque concept mixed into a warm kind of chill film. Like, I loved the vibe of the film. I loved where we went with it. It really worked for me. And it's almost like, I don't know, I feel like the less details the better on that film, to just like go in and experience what it's got going on. And it's like kind of not what you would expect just from looking at a picture of the film. And beautiful animation too. Some really colorful, great sequences too. But I mean, with animated, like I said, Little Amelie is beautiful too. So yeah. Number 2, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Wow, this is a shock. Could be a shock as well to people too, because it was kind of one of those. It was an Oscar contender. Look at this. This is pissing me off now, where it's just that the light has moved. That's the problem with the nature, huh? It was an Oscar contender, but mostly just for Rose Byrne as an acting nomination. It was never really about the film, and like that was the only nomination it got all season. And a lot of people had seen giving it like the 3.5 stars. You know, pretty good, maybe even lower sometimes. And they were just like, okay, well, the performance is great, but the rest of the film, it's pretty good. For me, I loved this film. And again, I can be stingy with my ratings sometimes. Like, you notice how many we just went through all in the great tier? That's pretty much all. Great is pretty much all 4 stars. And then anything above great is 4.5 or above. This is teetering on that for me. Like, it was close to a 4.5. I'm not fully sure. Ultimately, I think it was because of the ending. I wasn't fully sold on whether that worked for me or not. But it's got to be said, Rose Byrne was phenomenal in this, and it's almost a crime that she had to be pitted up against Jessie Buckley for Hamnet this year, because they're both easily performances I could see winning individual years, and that's the rub. In the same way, it's tough being an arbitrary batch of movies I watched in a month. You know, being number one this month is probably a hell of a lot harder than being number one in the first month of the year. The number one in the first month of the year this year was Atlantis, The Lost Empire, I think, and that was just a good movie. So, like, that's just like with the Oscars. You could have a lot of legendary films happen to fall in one year. All that to say, Rose Byrne, phenomenal. A joy to watch. A joy to watch. It's really a chaotic, unsettling, uncomfortable film to watch at times. But it's got that same kind of energy that I've grown to know that I love about films like Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, where it's just like things happening, not slowing down. And this is so much more character-centric than a lot of the films in 2025. Like, the screen time percentage, like Rose Byrne's in like 85% of the shots of the film. Like, there's almost nothing revolving on like focusing on a character away from Rose Byrne. No, it's just all her, and she just carries the weight of this film in such a compelling way that I really enjoyed the ride. And it's just uncomfortable in the best way possible. That leaves me with number one. My number one for the month of March 2026 will jump us up to the amazing tier just for this one movie, and that's Project Hail Mary. Yes, this one is a step up. I actually gave this 5 stars on Letterboxd, which surprised myself. Even coming out of the movie, it was like, it's between 4.5 and 5 for me, but I'll probably almost always default 4.5. I rarely ever give 5 stars. And I know there was someone I was following who said that they never give 5 stars on a first watch. Like, you need to have a second watch to really, if I want to cement that. And I totally get that line of thinking. And that's maybe subconsciously something I've always done as well. Just because I rarely give out 5 stars. Very few. Like, I watched 200 movies last year, and I gave, 3, maybe 4 or 5 stars. And some of those really had to be coaxed out of me after the year was said and done, even. But Project Hail Mary, I just think was solid. I walked out of the film being supremely impressed with the product we got. The visuals are really cool, and to learn after the fact, I could hardly even tell like where it was visual, where it was practical, and to hear that a lot of the stuff was practical, that really added a lot to the film too. It was gripping, it was captivating, kept my attention the entire time. It was funny when it wanted to be, which was often, and it was serious when it wanted to be. Ryan Gosling is great here. There's a fun duo dynamic here that's kind of, if you watch the trailers, probably, but it's unexpected otherwise. And yeah, I just had to give it up at the end of the day. Some beautiful shots, and there are some great visual effects on top of it. Awesome score. I love the score in this. And I had to give it up because I'm not the biggest sci-fi fan. Because I remember this being a conversation after this film came out, like, is this one of the best sci-fi films ever? And it's like people rattling off all the other options. I'm like, I haven't seen almost any of those. So, like, I'm really not at the snuff when it comes to sci-fi. The fact that I walked out of it being so passionately in favor of it, I think speaks volumes to it, and I had to give it up for that. I thought it was an incredible film. I loved the messaging of it. I loved the ride. I loved the writing. Loved the direction, the cinematography, the score, the effects. So it's like, what else can you ask for? I'm in the moment right now. Again, this easily could be the opposite effect where I start with a 5-star, go down. But I'm pretty firmly at 4.5 stars. Like, if I walk out of a film being that passionate about it, that's really all there is to it. And so, in a month where I watched 21 films for the first time, for it to be easily number one, not even a question when we have some legendary films in here, that's a testament to how much I think that film worked. And so go complain to someone else if you disagree. All right, that's it. Hopefully everything turned out good in terms of the sound and everything. It did bother me, the lighting. That might be something I need to work on. Because look at this. The spec, I get it, and then now I'm just dealing with the brightness on one part of me. It's my position in relation to the sun is what it is. But I appreciate you for joining me. And about almost an hour here talking about movies. I love movies. And that was March. I've pretty much watched all of the 2025 movies I intend to watch. I might have one or two more to get to, but so for the most part, the months to come should be just much more of a mixed bag. Trying to watch 2026 films as well, but also dipping into the bag that gets deeper and deeper of my watch list in movies I want to watch from years past. So thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more things on film and television. And let me know your thoughts on any of the movies I listed here, or any too high, too low. You let me know. All right, what you've been watching. All right, take care. Bye.